Good evening and welcome to this week in review. Tonight's stories include the BDDB report, Public Library TWIR new fundraising venture, visit to the greenhouse. These stories plus community events, the BBS Playbill, Off the Rack, and more coming up after this.
What if you lived in a home on an island you couldn't leave, with limited amounts of food and safe drinking water? It would be very important to use only what you need. Well, it doesn't matter where your home is, because we all live on an island we can't leave.
This past week, the Burgeo Library tried a new fundraiser. For 1 week only, the public library had a book fair. This is the first time the public library has had a book fair. I spoke to the librarian, Mrs. McDonald, on Thursday of this week, and she informed me that things were going very well. She also stated that with 2 days left, if sales continue, the library will most definitely have another book fair. The books at the fair were suitable for students in grades 1 to junior high. Sales at the book fair are going well. The more books sold, the more money the library would get. Mrs. McDonald told us that all funds from the book fair will go towards more books for our public library. Volunteer members of the library board set up the book display and took care of the book fair. The books were very good prices, and many people took advantage to buy birthday gifts and gifts for other occasions. Besides books, students could purchase pencils, erasers, craft books, and posters. As an added incentive for each purchase, you could enter your name into a draw for a chance to win $15 worth of books. The Public Library Board would like to thank everyone who supported the book fair and the volunteers for doing such a great job of running things. The main topic of conversation this past week has been the terrible weather we've been experiencing. Our weather woes began on Monday with high winds and blizzard conditions. School was closed for the day to the delight of our students. By Monday afternoon, the conditions seemed to improve a little. On Tuesday morning, the weather was not too bad when it was time to leave for school and work. However, by 9 a.m. it was whiteout conditions and high winds again. At approximately 3:45 p.m. the Burgeo Road was closed due to heavy drifting and high winds. Meetings were cancelled and driving conditions were not favorable. Early Wednesday morning brought cloudy skies and windy conditions, but it didn't last long. By 9:45 we were experiencing blizzard conditions once again and total whiteouts and zero visibility. At 10 a.m. the school was closed for the remainder of the day. Again, the Burgeo Road was closed due to heavy drifting and high winds. The equipment was unable to operate. We took a run in over the road on Wednesday and things didn't look too bad. The snow had drifted over in some places, but most of the road was clear. We went as far as Woody Eel area, but we turned back because whiteout conditions flared up again. By quitting time on Wednesday, we had blizzard conditions once again. Even some businesses closed down for the night. The weather forecast for Thursday was quite nice, sunny and very little wind. With another week left in January and February and March looming ahead, many believe that we are in for a long, hard winter. Still others say they don't mind the winter if we get a few sunny days in between the storms so we can get out and enjoy the many winter activities. On Thursday of this week, we visited the greenhouse. When you enter the door at the greenhouse, one of the first things you notice is the warmth and how bright it is. Preparation for the next tomato growing season is well underway. The seeds have been planted and will be ready to go into growing benches in a few days. At the time of filming, these plants were 4 days old. The Bridging the Gap participants were very busy. Some were putting white plastic over the peat, making ready for the plants. When this is completed, the plants will be placed into the holes that you see in the plastic. These two were topping up peat in the growing benches. When the old plants were removed, naturally there was some peat loss.
That's a fresh batch of peat we mixed up there.
Okay.
The head for stuff that we lost when we took the old crop out.
Okay. Yeah. You didn't lose that much, did you?
No, not.
That's not too bad, is it?
We took some out and added some fresh batch. So, you know,
Okay.
balancing the pH and the nutrients and that sort of thing. Everything is a balancing act here.
Yeah.
Everything from the temperatures to the.
So how would you know, for example, like during the growing season, if your balance or your pH is not good?
We've got two pieces of testing equipment. One is a manual one. We use a blue dye to test the liquid coming out of the bottoms of the benches. The other one is actually an electronic probe that we use. And that tells us the strength of the fertilizer. We like to put pH in at a pH of 6. And the drippings that come out of the bottom of the benches should be around 5.5.
Okay.
That's generally considered ideal.
Okay.
It will fluctuate a little bit from time to time.
So if it's up or is it down, then
you adjust it at your nutrient.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's coming along just fine.
We actually adjust our pH the same way the town adjusts the pH in the water system.
Okay. This group were busy making peat with nutrients.
What we're doing there is they're adding peat and perlite, and what they're spraying out is actual nutrients.
Okay.
Plant food.
Yeah, and they're having fun doing it. Everybody, yeah, it must be hilarious because everybody's giggling. So, yeah. Leonard Porter, one of the owner-operators of the greenhouse, told us that they had no problems with the new building and just a few bugs with the new eating system. Overall, last year was a great success. Everything is ready for the upcoming growing season. The whole house has been sterilized and the floor has been sterilized too. However, it needs to be done again before the new plants go into the growing benches. The harvesting for this season is expected to start at the end of April. Leonard told us they just sowed the last of last season's crop a few weeks ago. He also stated that plans are in the works to expand the greenhouse again. The plan is to put 2 more bays on the western side and 1 bay on the eastern side. Coastal growers are also planning to build a id house, which would house the packing room, offices, washrooms, etc. Plans are also in the works to use the original house for research and development. Coastal growers are seeking advice from their consultant, Jim Kaiser, and their buyer as to what would be the best to start on next. Some ideas are lettuce and peppers. We also spoke to Henriere, and he told us they're still fortunate that they didn't have any harmful bugs to the tomatoes last season. He also stated that they're still going to use bumblebees to pollinate the plants instead of doing it by hand. It's much cheaper to use the bees, which, by the way, are shipped in from Ontario. Did you know that bees only live 6 to 8 weeks, and the coastal growers use 6 boxes of bees per growing season? The start of this season marks number 4 for the coastal growers, and we wish them every success. Stay tuned for more of This Week in Review coming up after this.
The earth can satisfy our needs, but not satisfy our greed. So please, use only what you need. It's not like we can go shopping somewhere else.
On Thursday of this week, we spoke to Constable Ron Caldwell about the Skidoo regulations. We have with us in our studio today Constable Ron Caldwell. Welcome once again, Ron.
Thank you.
Today you're going to give us some information on Skidoo regulations.
Yes, I finally got some information from our headquarters through the Crown Attorney's Office as to what their interpretation of the Motorized Snow and All-Terrain Vehicles Act is. And there's a difference in the regulations for skidoos and quads. I was just going to go over them. Basically, a lot of the people are wondering who can and can't operate a snowmobile and where and what the rules are, etc. So I'll just go over it quickly, and then if you have any questions, you can interject anytime, or you can just let me carry on.
Okay.
The snowmobile is the ones that the young people seem most interested in, and presently, and I just received this afternoon from our criminal operations branch in St. John's, a person under 12 is not allowed to operate a snowmobile at all. And that comes under Section 21 of the Act, where the Lieutenant Governor said that no matter what the age restrictions are, where it says under a certain age, 12 is deemed to be the minimum age that can operate a snowmobile. Now, a person who's 12 years old is allowed to operate a snowmobile only if they're accompanied by a person 19 or over, and the snowmobile has to be insured.
Okay.
Now, a person 13 to 19 can operate a snowmobile alone. However, the snowmobile has to be insured, and they have to follow all the rules of the road, etc., that everybody else does. So if you're 13 or 14 or 15 and you want to run your snowmobile, you better learn the rules and make sure that you follow them, because if you're eligible to operate the machine, then you're eligible to receive the tickets for not operating them properly. A person over 19 can operate any snowmobile, of course. Now, up to age 19, the Act says that if a person's operating under the age of 19, the snowmobile has to be insured. And I'm not sure how the insurance works or what the costs are or anything like that, but there is a requirement for insurance, and if there's a requirement, then there's a requirement to prove it to me. If I catch a young person operating a snowmobile, I can ask them for proof of insurance. So, like I say, age 12 can operate if they're accompanied. 13 to 19 can operate by themselves, and over 19, of course, they can operate by themselves and no insurance is required. And unfortunately, and I'm going to stress that for safety reasons, I don't like this rule, but there's no requirement to wear a helmet when operating a snowmobile. And anybody that operates one knows that maybe when that rule was written 30 years ago and the machines would do 20 kilometers an hour, now they'll do 200 kilometers an hour, and 200 kilometers an hour on ice without something to protect your head, you're not going to survive an accident. Yeah. So anybody that's operating a snowmobile should wear a helmet. You wear one for a bicycle, you should wear one for a snowmobile.
Exactly.
Now, quads, they're referred to as ATVs, this is the quad or the trike. You do have to wear a helmet, and the age requirements are different. Under 12, of course, is not allowed to operate.
Okay.
13 to 16, or 12 to 16 has to be accompanied by a person over 19. And 16 to 19 can operate alone, but insurance is required on the machine. And helmets are required for everybody from 12 up. Now, under 12 can be passengers, of course. You can take young people on your machines. They're just not allowed to operate them. So that's the way the rules go.
Okay. Now, you talked about ages and the requirements for insurance, but what about, I'll say, getting to and from the snowmobile areas like Granny's River and things like that, if you're not in an area that's, say, for example, if you're way down exactly where the RCMP office is, or somewhere you have to, without putting it in a vehicle, are you allowed to drive it up the road, or?
Speaking to the town office on this, there are provisions to operate your snowmobile leaving town. However, you're to do it via the ponds and off the roadways as much as you can.
Okay.
And if you do have to use a roadway to get to certain areas, then you're responsible for looking out for traffic. You're not considered a vehicle on the highway. You're almost like a pedestrian, and you're responsible for watching for traffic and operating as close to the edge of the road and slowly. And if anybody is reported as operating on the roadway, like down the middle of the lane and meeting opposing traffic and forcing people off the road, they'll be ticketed for that.
Okay.
There are, like I say, there are provisions to operate your machine leaving town, and that's what you're to use it for, is leaving town. You're not to use it to go to the grocery store or whatever. It's not a personal
Okay.
mode of transportation to replace the car for the wintertime. It's to be used as a recreation vehicle, and it's to be used outside of town other than getting to and from. And that doesn't mean you can take it and run it up and down the ponds in town either. That's not fair to the people that are living close, because snowmobiles are loud, and you could be disturbing somebody's evening if they're working nights or whatever the case may be. So they're to be operated to leave town and then for the trails and whatever outside of town.
Okay, now is there any stipulation there that says snowmobiles have to be, can't be used between the hours of blank and blank?
Not
No.
that I know of.
Okay.
If I find out any information like
Okay.
that, I'll put a notice on
That's probably
on the channel.
that's just probably common courtesy.
Well,
Not
if
to
you're
roar
disturbing
past somebody
somebody,
else's- yeah.
excuse me, if you're disturbing somebody, then that's a criminal code matter. If
Yeah.
I can do that, if your music is too loud, it can be,
Okay.
you can be charged for disturbing somebody's use of their property.
Okay.
If they want to have a nice quiet evening, then you can't play your music too loud, so you shouldn't be able to run your skidoo too loud either. Just
Okay.
common sense and courtesy. Courtesy and respect is the main words here. If everybody respects everybody else, we'll have no problems.
And well, you already addressed the question of speed going through, like getting from point A to your skidoo trail. Is you're supposed to be a pedestrian.
Yes,
So speed, you still have to.
you shouldn't be driving 40 and 50 kilometers an
Okay.
hour on the roadways here in
Okay,
town with your
yeah.
snowmobile.
All right. So there's really no speed limit for once you get to your skidoo trails.
No,
Okay.
not, the trails are whatever's safe.
Okay. All right.
And most people know the safe speed on the trails, and a safe speed in town where there's vehicles present is very slow, so you can be watchful for the vehicles. They may not notice you. You're smaller, you're not as high up. Now, if you're going to operate after dark, you have to have all the lights and reflectors and everything as well. You can't operate without headlights and taillights. All those have to be in proper working order, and there's tickets for not having your equipment in proper order as well.
Okay. That was just a thought. Have you had any very many complaints to date about skidooers and causing problems and?
We hear things, but we've had no official complaints.
Okay, that's what I
Nobody's
meant.
come down to the office and said, "I'd like to report so and so has been speeding up and down my street."
Okay.
We hear people will stop me and say, "Skidoos are getting out of hand. They're all over the place," and things like that, but nothing specific. So that's why I thought if I can do this and get the word out as to how and where and when to operate, then maybe we can avoid an official complaint and everybody can enjoy it. There's lots of snow this year for the snowmobiles, so
Yeah.
they want to enjoy them, and I'm not here to keep you from enjoying them. I just want to make sure that they're used safely, and that respect for because there are people out there that don't have snowmobiles and don't want snowmobiles, and they don't need to be bothered by people that have them just because there's snow.
Okay. Well, we certainly thank you for coming in.
One
sorry.
other
Yeah.
thing I wanted to bring up. I've heard that people are operating the snowmobiles in the provincial park, and that is strictly prohibited
Okay.
under the Provincial Parks Act. The only park that is officially allowed to use snowmobiles, other than ones that are designated, is the Trailway, which is the old railway bed, is considered a provincial park, and you're allowed to operate there, of course. But in Sandbanks, there's to be no operation of a snowmobile in Sandbanks. And I know that people are using them out there, and there used to be signs. The signs are no longer up, but that doesn't mean that the rule isn't there. So if people could keep that in mind, that they're not to operate the snowmobiles in the provincial parks as well.
Okay. A lot to remember.
There is.
Yeah.
They can always get in contact with us if they have any questions on what they can and can't do. It's better to ask me before than to get caught and get a ticket for it after. So you can always call the office, and we'll have the information available, and we'll make sure that if you have a question, we'll do our best to answer it.
Okay. Well, thanks so very much for coming in.
No problem at all.
On Wednesday of this week, Greg Elliott dropped by with the BDDB update. We have with us in our studio today Greg Elliott, our BDDB officer. Welcome once again, Greg.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we got quite a few things to cover, so we'll get started. We're starting with the shed development.
Yeah, as people are well aware in the community, and certainly in Ramia, we've a partnership with the town to try and acquire the funding and assistance to do an expansion on the facility out on the government wharf. And of course, unfortunately, due to the time of year and the situation, we've actually had to put that development on hold. And of course, as we can all tell by the weather, we're probably better off to have done that. But right now, as we speak, we've received approval for an extension from Industry Trades in terms of the funding to carry some of it over until the spring of the year. And we've had initial discussions with Human Resource Development Canada in regards to their participation in this event. And it looks like right now that everything will proceed. We're anticipating somewhere around the first week of April. We've got our drawings in place, and we've received approval from Government Works and Services, and Government Service Centre have approved our drawings and designs. And hopefully we'll have a crew begin the first week of April, and then complete construction by the end of May. We are working with one company who've just finished off their business plan development, and over the course of the next couple of months, hopefully we'll see some activity in that area, because they are potentially one of the tenants that will be going in the expanded facility. And hopefully the business plan will prove positive enough that they'll be able to realize a relocation here to Burgeo, and hopefully some employment will come out of that initiative at the end of the day, because right now they're projecting in the first year roughly between 6 to 10 people employed through that initiative. So the business plan is done for that company. And over the course of the next couple of months, it will be our objective to meet with the company and other representatives from different agencies to try and move it forward, that we can put them in the building once we've got it all constructed and ready to move. And of course, we are building a shuck facility, and with the anticipation that whoever might come in there will have to do their own renovations and upgrading and that kind of stuff, because I mean, there was no sense in us trying to put in all kinds of amenities in anticipation of certain businesses coming in, when in reality there might be other initiatives happening there at that point in time. But so our objective is obviously to put the main structure in place, and then there will be some spin-off jobs if in fact these companies start relocating and setting up in here. And of course there'll be jobs in the construction side of it, and then hopefully in the operation side at the end of the day. And of course, as we all know, on the existing facility, certainly Seacrest has been moving forward in terms of their renovations. They have stopped now for the winter months, and we'll pick it up again in March sometime, from my understanding, and it's their goal to start their actual operations sometime in April, when the ground fishery opens again. So there's a few positive things that could eventually happen in the shed development overall. So we're pleased from that perspective, and hopefully move forward. And of course the ferry terminal, that will be in operation again once the facility is constructed. The ferry terminal will be in operation beginning in the latter part of May. Yeah, and of course the other initiative that we have going into the facility is the ferry terminal that will service the region, and certainly it's our goal by the end of May to have that up and running. And we've had conversations with the Department of Work Services Transportation. They've agreed to offset any of the operating costs associated with operating that facility. So it's certainly another positive step forward, I think, that will certainly have a benefit with the whole region, not only the community of Burgeo.
And it's certainly needed.
Oh,
There's certainly a needed facility out there for the ferry.
There's no doubt about it. All you got to do is look at this time of year, and my God, you can certainly feel for the people that have to hang around there waiting for the ferry from Grand Bred or from Franceway, or even the one coming back and forth from Ramia for that matter.
That's right. Moving on, the Long Range Zone Board read the EDO position.
Yeah, there's been some discussion, and I've really tried to remove myself from it, but over the course of the last 3 or 4 months there's been some discussions with the BDDB and even Town Council and the Zone Board, who was my employer, in regards to Burgeo having their own economic development officer. In certain circles and certain realities, it's felt that there's enough of a workload and initiatives happening within Burgeo itself that they should go back to the old system. If you might recall, in 1997-98, there was an EDO that was stationed in Burgeo full-time, as well as Ramia, Grey River, and Franceway had their own development officer that was located in Ramia. And the two, I guess, local agencies, if you want, have been writing correspondence back and forth to the Zone Board in regards to trying to obtain the services of their own development officer directly. And at this point in time, the Zone Board has written back to the local development board, and I'm not sure if council has received correspondence yet, basically saying that at this point in time they're prepared to leave it as status quo in terms of having one development officer trying to serve the 4 communities. From my perspective, I've talked to the different groups that I work with in the area, and just said, when I was hired for a certain position, and if in fact the town council or the BDDB or even the Zone Board wants to to rearrange things and do things, and then it'll be up to them, and I'll just kind of determine for myself what the fallouts might be after at the end of the day. But I'm really not prepared to get into it in any way, shape, or form. But certainly there is some legitimacy to their concerns. We have been involved and are involved in a number of different local initiatives within Burjo that certainly, I won't say can be moved on, because from my perspective, I feel that we try in our office to address everything and anything that comes forward. And but really, in reality, I think the town would like to see access to their own development officer full-time, as opposed to coming in and all of a sudden I'm in Ramio, or at times I have to travel with the group from Ramio to different meetings, whether it be Stephenville, Cornerbrook, St. John's, or wherever. And of course that takes me away from activities, no doubt about it, related to Burjo at times. And then it's vice versa as well, though, at the same time. So I can certainly see the rationale for it. My personal feeling, and I said this to the board, that I don't think at this present time, due to the economic situation and restraints with the funding agencies, that they're going to see much of a change for the very near future anyway.
Okay. Now, on to the sea urchins. How's that project coming along?
I'm not sure if I mentioned it in December, but I guess one of the major hurdles that we've managed to overcome, and this is certainly working in conjunction with the COA especially, is that we've managed to get the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to actually reopen the file again. About a year ago or so, the department wrote back a COA who was looking at funding this initiative for us. Obviously, it's a development initiative, basically stating that they considered this as primary processing, and that they had some concerns over the amount of resource within the area, and et cetera, et cetera. So they were fairly negative overall in terms of the actual development of the sea urchin industry in the southwest coast. Since that time, they have come back to a COA and said, look, we're willing to take a second look. So over the course of the last month, I've had a number of conversations with representatives of COA. We've addressed issues such as the amount of resource. And one of the big things in our favor, and I've stressed to them, is that we're doing this in partnership with 5 other zones, 4 other zones in the southwest coast. We've got the coastal bays we're involved in. We're involved with the Marina Mountain Zone. We're involved with the Bay of Islands Development Corporation, and of course we have Burjo and Ramia involved as well. So our feeling is if we can take moderate amounts of resource and bring them to Burjo for processing, there's no one place that's any more than 3 hours away in terms of shipping resource here, which is really good. Then we're going to be able to provide what we feel is a sustainable industry here in terms of not playing havoc, if you want, on the resource. So that was certainly one issue, and the other issue, of course, they wanted to address was the markets. And right now we have 2 industry partners that we're dealing with on the East Coast. Both of them have agreed that they would purchase roe and brine from us, and one in particular has been operating the full season and have very strong markets apparently. And of course, our philosophy is we really don't care what happens to it at the end of the day. If a company has strong markets, then all we really want to do is get in the initial stages in harvesting and processing the raw resource to the roe and brine stage and ship it to the industry partner, who then can take it to the marketplace. And if there is strong markets there, then we feel there's no reason why we can't get involved in it. So right now we've addressed those number of issues. Excuse me. And there was a number of other, I'd call it minor issues that we had to deal with as well. But right now, those were the major 2. A COA has since gone back with a response to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And we are anticipating, as a matter of fact, we did request that by the end of January, we would like to know what the status of this initiative is. It's been, believe it or not, it will be 3 years come next month, February, that we actually started working with a couple of local individuals here who originally wanted to just get involved in the sea urchin harvesting business, and that's fine. That's great, and we've worked through a process with them for a period of time. But our board kind of saw a bigger picture in terms of the creation of more on-land jobs with the processing side of it, and that's where we've kind of picked up the ball and kind of ran with it and investigated a whole bunch of opportunities. We still see it as a major viable opportunity here for this region. Our frustration comes is that if DFO decides to turn down the development of this underutilized species, what's going to happen to anything else that we decide to identify? Obviously, we won't be able to move it forward, and that's where our frustration comes in. And certainly when I had my meeting in September with Mr. Jerry Byrne, who was the Minister for COA, I expressed that more than anything, that, okay, if the sea urchins aren't on for whatever reasons and they're legitimate and they turn it down, that's fine. But if they deny us the development of the sea urchins based on what they're saying right now, then that means there's no way, shape, or form that we should ever waste any time looking for any other types of underutilized species in this region, because it's just not going to happen. And that shouldn't only affect us, but I mean, it should be something that should be, and I brought it up to the zone board, dealt with on a provincial level, because if we're down here in Burgeo working on underutilized species and can't get that to move forward, then what makes anybody think that any other communities around the province looking at diversifying into the fishery and other underutilized species are going to get the same answers that we got? At least I would hope we're all going to get treated the same, because if we're not, then certainly my frustration is going to come out more than that. And again, we go back to the reality, and I've said to people that, you know, we've acquired funds to do resource identification. We acquired funds to look at analysis in terms of transportation and those kinds of things. And everything, it's like the greenhouse development. Everything lends itself to be positive. And I'm the type of person that if it's negative at the end of the day, or it doesn't look like it's on, then I'm not one to kick a dead horse, so to speak. And this thing looks more and more all the time as viable. And we have these other zones that are interested in getting involved in the industry. They've identified resources in their areas. They've sent up sample products to our industry partner, who's very pleased with the resource and the quality. It all lends itself to say, yes, this is doable. And we want Burgeo, obviously, to be the hub for the processing area, and we think that the furthest is Port aux Basques, which is 3 hours away, and that's not going to compromise the quality of sea urchins. If they haul them out of the water 5 o'clock at night, by 8 o'clock that night they can be here, we can put them in cold storage and they can be processed the next morning. You can't get no better than that anywhere else. And then once they go once the roe is put in brine, the quality is still attained for another 3 days. And our goal is within a 2-day period to have it shipped to the industry partner who does the final processing and ships it on. So everything lends itself to a very positive atmosphere for development of the sea urchin industry. And of course, you know, if we can't do that, then where do we go and what do we do? And I'm sure people in the community can feel for it as much as I do, because I know the first time we sent sea urchins up to the East Coast, there was about 3,000 or 4,000 pounds, and that was a day's work for 20 people in this community. And that was the first time we shipped them up. And I sat back in my desk on a Saturday afternoon and said, my God, what are we doing? Are we getting the same thing as the groundfish? Is that all they want now, is our resource again, and somebody else is going to benefit from the processing side, which is where all the jobs are, let's face it, at the end of the day. So hopefully some reality will come to it, and I think our board's getting a bit frustrated, because they've invested a lot of time, money, and energy as well, you know, into trying to move this thing forward. And we've had all kinds of meetings with, you know, from the Minister of ACOA right down to the Minister of DFO, and had meetings with DFA. We brought the MP into it, and all kinds of people, and even our MHA has been involved in a number of ways. So, I mean, if we can't, with all these people that look at it and say, yes, but this is really positive, whatever. I mean, if we get stymied by some type of interpretation of a government policy, then it's not going to lend itself at the end of the day for us to even look at underutilized species overall. So hopefully we'll get a positive response at the end of the day.
Well, it certainly sounds like a win-win situation, despite the fact of the DFO policy.
Yeah, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I mean, DFO again has a job to do. They have people in their offices that have to look at the policies and do certain interpretations. But when it gets to the point that when you know the history and what the interpretation of policy originally was, because the policy was initiated in '92. And it all had to do with the downfall and demise of the ground fishery, and that was understandable. But what they've done is stretch the gamut to include any type of species. And I mean, some way, shape, or form, somebody's got to come back and look at this and say, okay, you know, is this on or is this not on? And let's have a look at that policy again and make sure that it's being interpreted the way it was originally intended to be interpreted in 1992. And hopefully, you know, one thing to be said positive, I guess, to get the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to open up a file a second time to have another look is certainly a very positive step forward to begin with. So we'll look forward to seeing what happens. Again, I'm not going to hang my hat on it, but at least we have another kick at the cat, so to speak, to see if we can move this forward. And of course, that also goes back to the shed development, because part of what we're looking at putting in that facility is the development of the sea urchin industry, and there is an area designated set aside. And if the structure's up and we do get approval, the timing will be perfect. because once we get everything in place, then of course that'll mean more jobs, because that area of the facility will have to have construction happen. So again, we'll have people involved in the construction end, and hopefully we'll go back to it that September next year we'll actually have a facility up and running in terms of sea urchin processing.
Certainly sounds like a positive thing. Now on to your AGM.
Yeah, at the board's last meeting, of course, it's that time of year again where they had a discussion at our annual meeting. Right now we've got the meeting tentatively set, or I wouldn't say tentatively because it is confirmed now, for April the 10th. We booked the ground search and rescue facility here in town. We've invited our MP, Bill Matthews, to be guest speaker that night, of course, as well as our MHA, the Honourable Calvin Parsons, to attend and bring greetings as well, and the mayor and councillors, and of course a number of different agencies that were involved in, and individuals we've been working with for the last few years. So we're certainly encouraging people to come out. We will do an overview of the activities of the board for the past year, like we've done in other annual meetings, and of course we'll present our financial statements. And I guess one of the highlights tonight will obviously be the election and appointment of another board of directors for the coming year. And we certainly encourage people to get involved. I mean, it's hard certainly sitting on the outside to see how valuable development board is locally, and if a community, to be quite frank, where you lose a local volunteer development board, the various different government agencies and even government officials will look at it and say, well, how serious are these types of communities in terms of wanting to move their community forward and get involved in community development. So it really is one of those situations that we certainly encourage people within the community to come out and find out what the board's all about. The commitment is basically a regular meeting once a month, and then of course depending on the situation we do have a special meeting every now and then. But I would say on the average, if you're involved, it's probably somewhere around 2 meetings a month maybe overall. And during the summer months, the last couple of years, we haven't had to meet at all. Things have run fairly smooth to the point that we managed to kind of take the summers off in terms of the volunteer aspect.
Yes.
and go from there. But certainly we encourage people. Right now we only have a 6-member board. Our mandate, or the Constitution, requires a maximum of 10. We can't operate with less than 10. But it has been a struggle this year to get people involved, and I don't know why. The board doesn't know why. They've gone out and certainly advertised and one-on-one gone out and invited people to come in and sit into a meeting, see what it's all about, and see if they might be interested in getting involved. We do have a number of interesting things. Sometimes it can get frustrating, no doubt about it, and certainly some members of the board have been there for a while, and they're like myself. I guess they sit back and say, I've been here 3 or 4 years. What have we really done? And no doubt we've done a lot of things, but in terms of, I'll get back to our previous discussion we had earlier before we went on. Is that my gauge is how many sustainable jobs have we created in the last number of years, and certainly not only my frustration but more board members' frustration as well comes out and saying, we sit around this table and we talk about community initiatives and things we work on, and all of a sudden you just like you come up against the wall again, and it certainly can be frustrating at times, but other times there's a lot of benefits and a lot of things that have come out positive through the board. Like the cell phone service is one of those things that the board pushed for 2 or 3 years, albeit it hasn't created any sustainable jobs, but it's certainly a service and amenity within the community that's become very valuable, and people wouldn't want to lose it now. So there has been things that have very positively come out of the development board that people should look at, and to gauge the sustainable employment is certainly one aspect, but there's other, the social and overall economic aspects that certainly the board has proven to be very strong, and it is. We've been told that the development board here in Burgeo is probably one of the strongest in the province when it comes to trying to be innovative and aggressive in moving things forward, and that's a credit to the people that sit around the table. So we certainly encourage people to come out. We'll have advertising out around certainly within the next few months, but I felt it was appropriate now that we've set the date for our annual meeting just to let the general public know.
Okay. I think we covered just about everything. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that covers it off for now, and I guess, Marie, like I've said previously, I mean, our board's here for the residents of this community. If there's ideas or initiatives that somebody might have, whether it be from the social side of it, or whether it be from maybe putting in new infrastructure or new amenities throughout the community that people might want to see happen, to somebody with a business idea, or even an overall economic development idea that they might have, sitting at home thinking about. I mean, the door's open. It's just a matter of making a phone call and set up an appointment, and we welcome anybody to come in to discuss and try and move forward some ideas that anybody might have. So our door is always open, and certainly people in the community are more than welcome. That's what we're here for.
Okay, thanks once again for dropping by.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
When spring comes, many residents leave Burgeo for Nova Scotia and PEI to work. During their work term last year, Jim and Alice Swift used their video camera to film some scenes at Camp, Nova Scotia. Over the next few months, from time to time, we will be showing parts of this video. We hope you will enjoy it. The first part will be shown on Thursday, January 30th on the Community Channel 10 at 7:30 p.m. We thank Alice and Jim Swift for loaning us their video. Stay with us for Off the Rack, the community events, and the BBS Playbill, all after this. Off the Rack. This week, as we scanned our tape rack, we came across a tape of Burgeo residents enjoying winter activities. Let's look back to January 1991.
Welcome to the community event segment of tonight's broadcast. I'm Rebecca Young. The winner of the LOL TV Bingo was Rhoda Arrett. Congratulations, Rhoda. The next scheduled TV Bingo will be hosted by the SJCH on Wednesday, January 29th at 7 p.m. Cards are $1 each, or 6 for $5, and are available from any student at SJCH and are in most stores around town. Please support our students, play a TV Bingo, and you could win $300. The Burnett's are selling tickets on a basket of towels. Tickets are $1 each, or 3 for $2. Draw date is set for Saturday, February 8th. Tickets are available from any Burnett's member. With Valentine's Day only a month away, the Guiding Movement are preparing for their annual Valentine Balloon fundraiser. This is a unique way to send Valentine greetings to someone special in your life. To order, you may contact any member of the Guiding Movement, or you may call Kim at 2209, Liz 2324, or Lisa at 2076. To order a balloon for your prayer partner, please call Grace at 886-2117. Place your order today. The Ground Search and Rescue Team have made their final preparations for their snowmobile ride to Burnt Dam on March 1st. The 160-kilometer ride will begin at or near the community center if the snow conditions are suitable. This year they have added a poker run for any rider who may be interested. It will cost $2 per rider, and the winner will receive a gift valued at $50. Riders will be permitted to double up on one skidoo. Upon arrival back at the community center, the Lioness will serve soup and sandwiches. As an added incentive, the rider raising the most money will be given a GPS. Pick up your pledge sheet today and come along for what will be an enjoyable ride. February 9th to 15th is Teacher Staff Appreciation Week. Since 1988, Teacher Staff Appreciation Week has become an annual celebration across Canada in support of teachers and other members of the school staff. It is essential our school have the support and involvement of parents and the community. We are looking for your help in organizing this event again this year. This week provides us with the opportunity of giving teachers and school staff a warm hug. Let's let them know that they are appreciated, that we want to work with them, and that we are on the same team. Let's be creative, try something new, have fun. If you are interested in helping or have questions and or suggestions, please call Dina, School Council Chair, at 886-1338. If you are a young person in grades 5 up to grade 7, and you would like to learn new skills, have fun, make friends, and develop Christian values that will impact your lives, then St. John the Evangelist Church has what you need. We are in the process of organizing a weekly Pioneer Club program, Trailblazers, for young people ages 10 to 12. The tentative startup date is Wednesday, February 5th from 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. Any young person wanting to register for this club, or if you would like more information, should contact Reverend David Russell or Hannah Dix by January 27th. If your group or organization has an upcoming event planned, we would be happy to advertise it for you. Just call the BBS office by Wednesday of each week to have items included in this portion of our broadcast. That concludes the community event segment of tonight's broadcast. See you next week.
BBS Playbill. Tune in on Tuesday for a rebroadcast of Pansy's Garden. Try your luck on Wednesday by playing SJCH TV Bingo. On Thursday at 7 p.m. we will have the first part of Scenes at Chittacamp, Nova Scotia by Jim and Alice Swift. Join Pansy and the gang for 2 stories, a craft, and lots of fun on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on Pansy's Garden. And I'll be here again next week with This Week in Review. For This Week in Review, I'm Marie Rose. Good night and God bless.